A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 32.
Welcome to a Swift Kick in the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curren. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong friend John Curren, who I've known since I was 4 years old. And today we discuss Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. This is a best-selling book, and we like to delve into each law and take our opinions and, overview of what we think of the law. Today's law is Law 19.
Before we get into this law, Tom, really, they say that if you read this book, you'll be entertained. But the people who really get something out of it study it. They study each chapter and they figure out how it applies to them and in real world terms.
And then they conquer the world.
Yeah. And, once you read this book, I have to say it's one of those books that changes the way you view the world, and there's no going back. We've talked before about how evil this book can be, and that is not our intent. It's really to know
speak for yourself.
What's going on. Yeah, it's a way to protect yourself.
I said speak for yourself.
Oh, speak. Yeah. Well, this is perfect because Law 19 is about knowing who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person.
This is a good one.
Yeah. Now, Tom and I have been friends since as long as I can remember, childhood friends. And so I know who I'm dealing with. Or do I?
Well, everyone says you look like Christopher Reeve, which you do, and which has played Superman. And, me with a bald head, Lex Luthor, they were friends. Just saying.
That is true. And also you look like Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I get that all the time, and I've played him on Halloween.
And Tom is saving up for an RV.
That's right, I am. All right, Law 19. Know who you are dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. There are many different kinds of people in the world, and you can never assume that everyone will react to your strategies in the same way. Deceive or outmaneuver some people, and they'll spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. They are the wolves in lamb's clothing. Choose your victims and opponents carefully, then never offend or deceive.
It's interesting. I had a friend that I knew back in college, and she was actually the best man at my wedding. That's how good of a friend she was, or I thought. We were friends for over 30 years, but then things started to happen, and in the end, at this point in time, I have not spoken to her in 5 years. And I won't go into the nitty gritty details about that, but I will say that in the back of my mind, I always knew that was a one-sided friendship. That it was friendship on her terms. I always, my wife and I would always go over to their house. We'd always do the things that they wanted to do, and they really kind of drove that. It was she only did things that were in her best interest to do. It was not out of necessarily just it being the right thing to do. It served her well when she was nice. So I kept on thinking about that as I read this law. We think we know who we're dealing with, even good friends, over a long period of time. You think you know who you're dealing with, but do you ever really, know?
Well, pop quiz. We were talking about Superman, Lex Luthor. Do you know why Lex Luthor originally in the comic books hated Superman so bad?
He made Lex lose his hair.
That's right. Lex built like this little laboratory, or Superman built it for him. Lex created some kind of like smoke monster, and when it started boiling over, and caught fire, Superman, blew out the fire, and all the chemicals went on Lex's hair, and his hair went off, and then he was pissed off ever since.
I was nowhere around you, Tom, when you lost your hair.
It's kind of a shallow or a very weak origin. I think they've changed it since, but
well, they didn't have Hair Club for Men back then,
or Rogaine,
or Rogaine. Hey, you know what though? You wear it well. You wear it well. I mean, look at these ears, man.
Hey,
they're huge.
I'm no Donald Trump. What do you think? You think Donald Trump has a hairpiece?
I think it's fairly common knowledge that he does.
I don't think
he has a comb over, right?
No, I think what it is I remember a long time ago, one of my friends, before I was losing my hair, this guy had money and he had tried everything. He tried hair pieces, Rogaine, and he had showed me a procedure and it looked horrific. What they do is they stick this inflatable balloon basically under the skin, under your scalp, and they stretch out your scalp, right? And they take the part from the back of the, most people have the friar tuck area where they still grow hair good. So instead of just transplanting, like they do with hair transplants, they actually cut like a shape of a banana off from the back of your head and flap it over. They call it like the flap method, and sew it onto the front of your head. And then they add hair transplants. And I think from looking at it, that's what Donald Trump has. It looks like, because it gives these guys still a full head of hair in the front, but it doesn't look right. Like something's different about it, and if you look at them, they all have like these stitch marks, like Frankenstein. At least it did back. This was back in the 90s when I saw it, but I know they still do that.
Like any politician, and Donald Trump, I'm now including in that group, you really don't know who you're dealing with. And, that's a question that I have as I read through this law, know who you're dealing with and don't offend the wrong person. Do we want to be like politicians and just saying things that we know people will want to hear? And do we not want to offend people? I think so many times today we're politically correct, and we're afraid to speak our minds because we're afraid of offending people. Can't we just speak our minds and be respectful of other people and recognize that we all don't see the world in the same way? And why is that so offensive?
Well, I see the opposite. I see a lot of people who speak their mind and don't pay attention to who they might be speaking to. They just, especially, you see it in customer service, or you see it in, road rage instances where some guy will, jump out and be like, hey, and start yelling at the other guy. And he doesn't realize that guy, might, knows some martial arts training, might be a crazy, bow hunter and has his bow in there and shoots him through the heart with his bow, which has happened, or has a firearm. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's true. And I know in Miami, in particularly in any large city, if you're, if you cut off somebody by accident, or maybe they cut you off and then they shoot you the bird, there's been instances where that other person, who received the bird, follows the guy home and then shoots him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is crazy. And bringing it back to the politicians, this is a book about power, and in the world of power, there are going to be lines that you're going to have to cross in order to gain power. Things you must do to achieve your goals. Now, we always talk on this show about, this is not about evil. This is about protecting yourself. But I think that we need to be open and realize that it's very difficult sometimes to read people. I love rock and roll music, and I'm always thinking of songs when I read this chapter. But I was thinking of the band Rush and their song Limelight. All the world should be a stage, and we are merely players, portrayers, and wait. I'm messing up my messing up the lyrics, but you should get the point.
I got the gist. It's a good song.
Yeah, it's a great song, but if you listen to that song, they're really talking about this. They're talking about the world of power and how we interact with each other. within the book, they talk about five different five different types of people in which you could avoid. But I have some some thoughts, and we could talk about that. But I have some thoughts that kind of play on that as well, without going into the descriptions. And one is, how do we speak to people, and how do we be careful in talking to people so we don't offend them? Well, the first thing that we should do is never argue opinion, because you have your opinion, I have my opinion, and it's not necessarily rooted in fact. It's what we think. And we could talk all day about religion, but those are very deep-seated opinions. These are deep-seated thoughts that people have. You will never, ever convince them. They might give in during an argument because they're just tired of listening to you. So they just say, yeah, I agree.
Well, think about it in religion, if you bring that up. How about within one sect? Like, you think of Christianity, you have Catholics, you have, Protestants, Lutherans, then there's other sects like the Seventh-day Adventists,
well, there's Catholics,
Mormons.
There's Catholics, and then there's Protestants. The Lutherans, Baptists,
right.
Seventh-day Adventists, they're all of the Protestant religion.
Right, because Catholic is the first universal church. And they splintered out of it. But what about even this is a little off, not necessarily off topic, but with Christianity in the beginning, there was Gnostics too that were not part of the Catholic Church. So during that time, there was other splintering interpretations of what Jesus said, and his followers. The Catholic was the one that they was the most universal and most largest group of Christians.
And very, the Catholic Church has been very powerful for a very long period of time.
Right. And they gained that power, through Rome when, who was it? The one emperor that on his deathbed, he saw a vision of what he thought was a cross. And it wasn't his deathbed. He was sick, and he had a vision that he was supposed to conquer in the name with a cross. So he interpreted it as Christianity. So he picked up and made Christianity the actual religion of Rome, because he won the war. I think he was fighting. It was between East and West, and he unified Rome. And when he did that, he promised to use Christianity as the state religion. But he died on his deathbed. From what I understand, he actually became a Christian just because he was like, I'm not sure, But he was what I don't know what you call. They worshipped he was a pagan. He worshipped the sun god. But up until his deathbed, I'm trying to remember the name of the emperor. It's starts with a C. But anyways,
Constantine.
I think that's it.
And it's terrible. And I'm Catholic, and I should know this, but I know that because there was a TV show by the name of Constantine, and
they have all these cool gladiator fights, right?
And again, I think right now we're really talking about a very touchy subject with some. It could be with some of our listeners. This is certainly not meant to offend anybody, and these are just our opinions. And we don't know who we're dealing with on a podcast because we don't have a chance to interact necessarily with our listeners.
No, and we get listeners worldwide. We have people in other countries and of other faith that listen to this, and this is more from a historical standpoint.
Right. And to kind of, the bottom line is that you should never argue opinion, because you will never, ever win. So, we could keep talking about this, for days and days, and never come to the same conclusion. Moving on to the second one, recognize insecurities in people, and power can be gained. We're talking about power here, in that if someone is insecure, you can play that to your advantage or they can play it. If you have insecurities, people can play to those insecurities to their advantage.
So let me step back for a second. So the first one was the arrogant and proud man, right? Or proud person, right?
Right.
And the second one's the hopelessly insecure.
Yes. And they're related to the proud and arrogant, but they're less violent, and often they're harder to spot. And if you think about that, a lot of us hide our insecurities because we don't want they come across as a weakness. And but if you think about, we'll go back to the government and to politicians in general, they play to our insecurities of the American people. I mean, look at all the hot topic, hot button topics that politicians bring up. No matter how you feel about them, terrorists, the security of our country is always brought up. Gay marriage, abortion. We could name just a list of topics that politicians bring up day in and day out. The wall to keep illegal immigrants out of our country. I mean, these are very emotionally charged issues that people have opinions about, strong opinions often, and often we often feel insecure about those, and we're being played, in my opinion.
I agree.
So, another kind of approach that we can take to not offend people is to test. And what I mean by that is tell a joke or a story or do something that will help you gain insight to the way that person is thinking, and that might give you some insight to help you not offend them. Now, I think this can be practiced in day-to-day life. I went for a hike today, a 5-mile hike, and I was in a state park here in Virginia, and a lady was up in front of me, and I saw that she sat down. It was a beautiful spot to sit because it was right in front of a lake, and it was just beautiful. So as I walked up and I saw her sit down, I said, "Hey, you took my spot," and she just looked so surprised, and she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "No, I'm just kidding." I'm thinking to myself, this is a state park. I have no right to that spot. That's not my spot. I was just joking, but I think that was a good test. And that told me a lot about that lady just from the one line.
Yeah, I learned a lot about a lady on a hike not too long ago. I went camping at the Coruscant State Park, and we're this is in Florida, and I have it's kind of like a GoPro. I have this little Sony action cam, but it's easier to hide in your hand, so it's almost like a spy cam. And I'd go down to trails with my family, and we have my cousins and uncles and relatives with us, and so I give my my little spy cam to my niece Emily. Right, she's 13 years old.
Yeah.
So we get up, and there's some people walking ahead of us, and there's this heavier set woman, and I didn't realize this at the time until I got home and downloaded the footage. But Emily, you see her point it to her face, and she's like, "Uncle Tommy, I'm going to leave you a present." And she takes and she holds it behind the lady's butt, and for 5 minutes as she's walking. And so I don't see it until I get it on my computer. I'm downloading the footage, and I see this lady's fat ass. I'm like, "What the hell is this?"
She knows you, Tom. She knows your likes.
It was funny.
She has your sense of humor.
Yes.
And that's great because that leads me to the next item. Things that we can do to help protect ourselves. Question how you see yourself, and think about your own strengths and your own weaknesses, and your own viewpoints, and how other people might. I think you have to understand yourself before you can try to really understand the world and those around you. Recognize that we don't all think in the same way. We don't have the same experiences, the same viewpoints and perspectives.
I kind of, and this is, embarrassing to say, but I kind of identified with some of these types in a way. And
I did too.
When I heard the arrogant and proud, I've had moments where, I get that way sometimes. And, like, you're not going to pull this over on me. And, you want to seek revenge. And then the hopelessly insecure. We're all insecure about something. And, sometimes you get, can you remember like the first time you walked into like a weightlifting gym, John, when you were a kid and, or a teenager?
With my dad.
Yeah. And you kind of feel intimidated. You see all these monsters, working out and, you're like, it's a very scary situation. You're like, oh man, I don't know if I feel comfortable working out here, not strong enough. I'm not big enough, not realizing that's why you're there and no one really cares. But, those are kind of things. And you have the suspicious person. We all sometimes become a little suspicious and wonder if, someone's trying to do something behind our back. And then what's the next? The serpent?
Yeah, the serpent with the long memory. Yeah. Yep. And the serpent with the long memory is if they're hurt or deceived, that person will show no anger on the surface, but they'll calculate and wait until the right moment, and then they will exact punishment beyond compare.
So this made me think of my wife and son have been watching Harry Potter, and the one bad guy is Voldemort, or I don't know what his name is. Not really into it, but he's like, he has no nose. Because I asked my son, I goes,
Voldemort.
Yeah, I was like,
he who shall not be named.
Right,
that's what I call my old friend, the lady that was, she's no lady, but the woman who was my best man that I'm no longer friends with, I call her Voldemort because I refuse to give that name power.
Gotcha. Well, I asked my son earlier, I was like, why does he have no nose? And he said that because, when you use dark magic, you start to look more and more like a snake. So I was like,
It wasn't the cocaine.
Yeah, I was just like, this guy's kind of creepy, but why does he not have a nose?
That is creepy. It does give, can give kids nightmares. That's for sure. It's funny. I think most people like to believe that life is, fair and justice prevails, and that we should all treat people with mutual respect. But in the world of power, this simply is not the case. People who are seeking power and who are out for power will play you any possible way to get what they want. And I think recognizing these, as Robert Greene says, the opponents, suckers, and victims. I definitely see myself in those 5 types. I think we all can. But that's a way also to protect ourselves, know who we are, and know too that we have to be guarded. Like in the last law, where we talk about isolation and building a fortress, and the world is a dangerous place. We do have to be careful, but that doesn't mean that we stop living our lives and that we live in fear. It just means that we have to be smart about things. And I look back when I was in college at the University of Florida is when the Gainesville murders occurred. And that was a really scary time. People were getting murdered. And my mom, as well as many other parents, told their kids, I want you to come home.
Right. It was a serial killer.
Yeah, it was a serial killer. And it was scary. I remember at that time making that decision and telling my mom, no, I'm not coming home. I'm in my last semester of school. I worked really hard to get here. I want to graduate. And the only way for me to do this, is to keep going. I'm not going to live in fear. And I really believe that once you start running from fear, you're never going to stop running because you're always going to be in fear of something. Those who stand up and address the fear. Doesn't mean you need to be stupid. I mean, I wasn't walking down dark alleys, or, I was being very alert, and again, going with the crowd, being in a crowd of people, you're much safer. I made it through that period of time, and I think that it really shaped the way I view the world because of it.
And I know I've told you this acronym before, but fear is fantasy, expectation, appearing real. That's a good acronym just to remember for fear. For it's really, it's in your mind. It's fantasy, expectation, appearing real.
Yeah, and and that's great, because the last point that I have is separate opinion from fact. I'm always telling my kids, they always say, "Oh, I need this," or "I need that." I'm like, "No, you don't need that. You want that." There's a difference. So there's a difference between what you think about things and the facts. I mean, there can be, difference. I remember there was a sign on my grandfather's desk. He was the state's attorney of Illinois back in the 70s. He had the sign. It said, "There are three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the facts."
It's funny because I remember my dad saying that exact same thing to me about need and want, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the Evel Knievel. Remember the Evel Knievel, a little rubber guy that you would put on his motorcycle and you'd wind it up.
You needed that.
Yeah. Well, no, I had Evel Knievel, but what I needed was the RV, so he could travel around, because that's what he came with the ramp. The RV had like this ramp that would go down, and you could store his motorcycle in there. And I think it even came with
get that RV.
It actually, I never did get it.
I know.
Oh yeah, maybe that's why I want an RV so bad. Because here's the deal: Mitchell Fleet, our friend, that may his soul rest in heaven now. When I was a kid, he had it, and he had a garage sale. And I remember I was with my sister and her friend had these little kids, and Mitchell was selling it. So I said, "Oh, I wanted to buy it." And then the lady saw it and goes, "Oh, I want that for my kids." And because she was older, she took it away from me. And I remember I was so upset, because it was like this 3-year-old kid that had no idea who Evel Knievel was. And he took it, and I had to go hang out with him after that. And he's sitting on it. It's like he thinks he can ride on it. And meanwhile, he's going, "Caca, caca," because he had just crapped his diaper. And I'm like, "Oh, he's ruining my RV.
Now, you probably didn't have the profanity, the knowledge of profanity that you do now as a kid, but you probably called him a booger face or something like that. Or
I was just like, I don't ever want to hang out with those kids again. And I didn't like that lady after that, because she just bullied me. It was a garage sale, and I had every right. I had the money, and I said I wanted to buy it, and then she just pushed me out of the way and took it.
And here we are all those years later, and you're still looking for your RV.
Still looking for my RV.
I think you need to tell that to your wife. That might get you your RV.
I don't know if she knows that story.
But the last part of separating opinion from fact is recognizing that instinct can be wrong. I think we've all had gut feelings. We've all had gut instincts. Some people are better at reading them, than others. But instincts can be wrong. Instincts are not facts. They're feelings. And you could be misinterpreting how you're feeling. So this plays into, not offending people, because if your instinct is wrong, you could tell the wrong joke to the wrong person and really, screw things up for yourself. And let's just face it, once those words leave your mouth, the damage is done. So be thoughtful before you speak. I need to watch this myself. I'm always sticking my foot in my mouth, but luckily my wife does the same thing. So it kind of balances out. And she recognizes that about me, and I recognize that about her, and it makes life much easier.
So you have some fun. You have some fun arguments at home.
Oh yeah, and a lot of apologies. I've learned how to apologize a lot. Anyhow, I hope our listeners really learned something from this episode. There is no reversal to this law. So, like I said, once you say something, once you offend somebody, it's very difficult to get back to where you were before. So, think that's it.
Well, till next time, thanks for listening.
Welcome to us.
That was offensive.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to A Swift Kick in the Ass podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we ask you to please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, head over to aswiftkickintheass.com to get a free copy of the Simple Spending Tool.